Okay, thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. Today we are going to continue our series of helping our customers and our prospects optimize their AI interviews. And the topic that we're going to focus on today is balancing structure versus flexibility. Uh, Basically, I think because AI moderated interviews is a new technology, there's a lot of questions in terms of what to do and how to really modify the AI moderator so that they can bring out the best insights for our customers. And one of the topics that we've continued to think about is what are some of the things that you could do to balance between structure and flexibility for your AI interview. So what does this really mean? Really, structure interviews have a very strict set of steps and questions as well as details that the AI moderator should follow through. So it leads to very consistent and reliable data, almost like having a survey structure, right? Where you're putting in the questions and the topics that the AI interviewer must follow through. Um, Nevertheless, flexible interviews can offer deeper insights. It offers a more natural flow and also lets the AI be more creative to enable questions, topics, and discussions that are not necessarily provided through the discussion guide. Balancing between these two things has been a fairly debated topic within our customer base, as well as with the folks that have interacted with Hubble's AI interviews. So we really wanted to address this new challenge and think about what are some of the opportunities, what are some of the ways that we could, help maintain the balance between the two, and also discuss what are the different types of interviews that you could construct, considering these two, spectrums or like the, opposite ends of the spectrum. Oh, so where does really AI moderated fit into the spectrum? I think there is, three different prongs that we could think about. Fully structured would mean that it's a fully scripted Q&A. The AI moderator, its sole job would be to just follow through the discussion guide and bring out verbal feedback from the participants. So it doesn't really use its own creativity, or it doesn't probe, anything that is outside of the scripts that you provide. But so it's fully structured. So it's very predictable. The data is is very consistent across participants. But I think one of the drawbacks is that you are, limited from discovering, new insights or things that you wouldn't have expected otherwise. Semi-structured is kind of in the middle where you have core questions and probes. So it does have a structure as well as an outline, but it doesn't have, probing or any additional insights. Oh, sorry, it has probing and additional insights that the AI can collect through additional instructions. And the opposite end of fully structured is unstructured, which is fully conversational and adaptive. We're going to show you examples of how to set the AI moderator to follow through with these types of conversations based on our discussion guide editor and how Hubble's AI moderator can adapt based on these conversations. But just wanted to level set that these are the types of interview conversations that we're looking for here. So the spectrum of interview styles can also be visualized in this way. So on one axis, there's fluidity and creativity, and the other axis we can see structure. So more exploratory interviews where it's more discovery based, you're trying to unlock insights at a much more broader basis and try to understand how users and participants are really thinking about certain topics, or let them talk so that the AI can basically follow through based on the responses that the participant provides. That would be categorized as exploratory interviews. And structure would basically, as we discussed before, would provide a little more rigidity in terms of the questions that it asks. And, really when you have a set of topics that are very, set, and there are sets of questions that you'd like to get answers to, just like you would in an unmoderated study or a survey, that's where you could use a structured interview. The advantage here is that you can get the feedback in a verbal response, which can obviously unlock more data and be a little bit richer than just getting answers to an open text survey, for instance. So what is the role of structure? Here are the benefits that we see of having a very structured AI moderated interview. Now, first, it ensures that the key topics are covered. I think if you have a very established agenda and there are topics that you want to get answers to, and you like to ensure that the AI moderator covers that, having structure and making sure that it's apparent on the discussion guide is the best way to go about it. That way, the AI moderator doesn't skip any of the key topics that you want to get responses for. And then also, two is easy comparison across participants. So when you run your synthesis and you're trying to analyze, and compare and contrast across different participants, assign them different personas and look at the key takeaways and themes that come through the conversations, the structured interviews are much easier to analyze because you can pinpoint a particular question, compare answers across participants, just based on the same question structure that the AI moderator is going to follow through. So we do think that in terms of data synthesis and analysis, the structured interview format helps a lot. And then three, it keeps sessions efficient. I think the AI moderator knowing what is the exact question format that it needs to follow makes it not kind of get distracted or maybe like continue to probe on a particular area that you don't want that much insight into. So it does keep the session very compact, depending on how you write your discussion guide. The risk and the kind of counter to that is that if you have a structured discussion guide, it can be a little bit too rigid and sometimes even robotic, depending on how you write your discussion guide, and it can basically be a verbalized survey. As I mentioned, it's still richer than what we get through a survey because it's the nature of the data is going to be audio, right? It's going to be speech. So there is a little bit of a differentiation there, but it is going to have a bit more rigidity without having to, the AI having to, go a little bit deeper into the participant responses and be a little bit creative in terms of the insights that it collects. And the role of flexibility, on the other hand, is that it adapts to the participant cues. So depending on what the participant says, or depending on the words choices that it uses and their tone, it can really dig a little bit deeper to allow for unexpected and spontaneous insights, which is something that is really hard to uncover if you have a fully structured AI-powered interview. And then also, it can be more engaging and human-like, really having the AI be a little bit more open because it will react more and will try to ask questions depending on the answer the participant provides. So it is going to feel much more conversational. If you provide a structured discussion guide, the AI's the most important goal is to actually make sure to touch on all the discussion topics and questions that you put in the discussion guide. So this is something that you should keep in mind. Now, if you want more freedom, if you want open insights, you can structure the prompts in a way such that it allows for this type of more free, engaging, and a human-like experience. The risk here is that it can lead to some messy data, and across, if you look at a sample set of various participants, it can create a lot of variability depending on what the participant says, or depending on what kind of that first reaction is based on the first question that the AI moderator asks. So it can make the data a bit harder to analyze, and we've noticed that synthesizing across different videos can also be a little bit different because there is a little bit of inconsistency if you think about the metadata and the overall structure of the interview, if there is this openness. So really the goal should be to find the right balance. So we would recommend to start with structure. We do think, having a set of discussion topics, questions that you'd really like to get answers to is important, but then building in the flexibility to actually have follow-ups enabled and allow the AI to be a little bit more creative through probing is the best way to go. And we did a webinar last week in terms of how to optimize probing. So you can take a look at that session just to understand like how to achieve that and what are some of the controls that you can have there. But we do recommend, really training the moderators with probing guidelines. And then using discussion guides. By default, Hubble's AI interviews are going to have embedded discussion guides that you can edit. But we really think having, top level themes and then informing the AI what the purpose of the interview is and what the background of the interview is helpful. But instead of just providing questions, if you can provide that sort of background on what the purpose of the interview is, it's going to do a pretty good job of probing and trying to get that additional insight, taking that extra step to be a little bit flexible as it's trying to dig a little bit deeper into the participant responses. And then the last point is, please pilot your studies. This is, AI, so I think it's always helpful to see what the kind of, to test the data and then see how the AI moderator behaves before you actually launch the study at full scale. So we would recommend piloting, maybe try the AI moderator internally a couple times and then see what types of insights and questions the AI moderator tries to collect for you by reviewing the transcripts. So that's going to let you kind of get a proxy of how balanced and how well structured the interviews are before you actually launch the study to a full audience, whether it be with external participants or with internal users. So the first tip that we have related to this topic, as I mentioned, is to start structured but allow for flexibility in your follow-ups. So this is an example of a discussion guide that we pulled from a study that we're going to show actually. So this provides structure around the interview. So it is broken out in different sections. There's a warm-up section, trip planning process, decision-making factors, pain points, and frustrations. So the AI can have a broad stroke of how it should, structure the conversation and what is the goal and what are some of the key things that it should uh, try to achieve based on the instructions that it provides here. So what we typically see is if you have a section like the warm-up section, you can include a string there and say, hey, greet and ask about the most recent trip that you planned and booked. So there's a simple instruction. It could be one sentence, two sentence, just giving a guideline in terms of what you want the AI moderator to do in that section. And then as you continue on, you can see here, for instance, pain points and frustrations, hey, talk about frustrations in the process, ground to context. And then in closing, just ask the manager one question. So there is structure here, but it does allow for a ton of flexibility. So depending on the participant's response, depending on which city they decided to take the trip to, that you're going to get, a really interesting variability and a wide spectrum of insights while still maintaining this sort of overall, structure across the interview videos. The tip is to provide probing guidelines. As we see here, we can see that the journey flow, uh, here it's section 1, general experience. There's, core question. Can you tell me when the last time you used a fitness tracking app? And then based on that core question, that's going to be kind of the main, I would say the foundation of that particular section. And then there's probes underneath. Hey, like what motivated you to open the app? What stood out most about that experience? How did that make you feel? Frustrated, satisfied, and motivated? And the AI doesn't necessarily have to ask all of these, probing questions, but these are just additional insights that you can have the AI ask so that it can really augment the answer that comes through after that the core question gets asked to the participant. So we covered this during the probing section last week as well, but we do recommend having a section and putting in a core question that should drive the overall, foundation of that particular section, and then probes, like, what are some additional insights? What are, some of these additional questions that you could ask to make sure that you can gather more intelligence on that core question that gets asked in that section. As I mentioned, piloting, reviewing transcripts is going to be really important. So always, we try to run the interview instead of sending it out to everybody, run some internal tests, like even, use up one or two participants just to see what, the overall flow of the interview and the, all, as you check the transcripts, you're going to be able to see, what types of questions and answers come through it. So that is something that we do recommend a ton, just because it can help you unlock, some if the AI is not really asking questions in the way that you want, you can check it and try to edit the transcript. Sorry, edit the discussion guide before you actually launch the study at full scale. Yeah, so now let me go through and we can take a look at some example study demos. So I am going to actually open this up. And then there's three different studies that I'm going to show in this example on this demo. One is going to be totally fluid. The other one is going to be semi-structured, so it's kind of balanced between having a totally fluid discussion guide versus a structured one. And then the last example that I'm going to show is going to be a fully structured discussion guide. So let's go through with the fluid one, and I'm going to walk through each of these and then just pretend that I'm the participant, and you guys will be able to see, how the AI actually behaves when it's trying to ask me the questions. Actually, before that, let me actually see if I can um, show you the discussion guides for these. One sec. Let's actually just go through and then yeah, back to Builder. Yeah, so let's take a look at the fluid one first. So here, the example topic that we picked was travel itinerary planning. Within tribal itinerary planning, we put in a description, hey, have the participants walk through the most recent trip, how they went about planning it and different factors they weighed in and how they came about the final itinerary. Interview length, we have left it as open-ended because we just want the AI to be able to continue with the questions and try to draw as many insights as possible. And here is the discussion guide editor. Again, because this one is a fluid one, we just provided something very general. Hey, have the participants walk through their most recent trip, how they went about planning it, and different factors that weighed in on how they came about the final itinerary. So this is very, very broad, right? And it could go in many different directions. But again, it's an example that shows how if you provide a general topic and what the goal of the interview is, the AI can use its creativity to dive into the participants' experience. Okay, and then semi-structured. So here, if you open the discussion guide, this is a little bit more rigid, just like in the slides example that I showed you. There is structure, there is a guideline in terms of what you want the broad strokes to be for the AI interview. Warm up, trip planning process, decision-making factors, pain points, frustrations, and closing. And then there's, as I mentioned, there's a single sentence that talks about what this section should be about. But then in terms of the granular questions and the interactions that the AA moderator decides to make with the participant, that is flexible. So the AI moderator can determine, what are the most appropriate questions to ask based on, the participant's answers. And then lastly, this is a structured discussion guide. So in the structured discussion guide, we have created it's the same format, right? There's still sections, but then we have provided a time limit just to make sure that the AI interview moderator knows how long to spend in each section, and then we have added questions like specific questions with quotation marks in here so that the AI moderator can use these questions as a benchmark and it can basically try to stay within this script within this discussion guide and again the benefit here is that all these questions as you specified them the AI moderator is going to ask word for word but it's going to have less room to ask open questions and try to come up with its own interview questions as it's interacting with the participant. So without further ado, let's take a look. I'll try to pretend that I'm the participant for these interviews, and
we'll show you how, depending on how you customize these discussion guides, the AI interview moderator behaves differently. So let's take a look. Preview. We're gonna get started. Okay, AI moderated interview. Click start.
Thanks for joining me today. Could you tell me about your most recent trip? Where did you go?
I went to southern Italy with my family.
That sounds lovely. How did you go about planning that trip?
I went on Google and try to look for highly rated places. I also asked ChatGPT how to really plan for my itinerary in southern Italy.
Got it. So you used a mix of Google and ChatGPT for research. What kind of factors were most important to you when you were picking places to visit?
I guess pet friendly was important because we have a golden retriever that we took to the trip. So that was quite important. And then we care a lot about food. So finding good restaurants that are pet friendly that we could go to was one of the key consideration factors.
That makes a lot of sense, especially with a dog along. How did you find those pet-friendly restaurants or places to stay?
Uh,
Run into any challenges when trying to confirm if a place was truly pet-friendly?
yeah, the information was a little bit difficult to find just on Google, I would say. So I needed to call and then visit their websites to see if they're pet friendly.
Got it. So it took a bit more effort to confirm. Once you had that information, how did
So yeah, as you guys can see, that was a fluid interview. I started to talk about how I went to Southern Italy, and then I brought up the topic of pets that I had a golden retriever, and the AI moderator immediately uh, poked on that and said, "Oh, like how easy was it to find places that were pet friendly? How important was that for you? Your consideration," and basically tried to focus on that answer, which is something that I provided. And if I were somebody that, cared about something else, like, being able to take small children and things like that, that would have been another area that the AI moderator could focus on. So as you can see, it's a very dynamic way to run the interview. So if you want to do more discovery-based research and you have a very general idea of what you want to learn and you don't really care about the answer being very, going in different directions, the fluid discussion guide can be a great way to achieve that. Okay, now I'm gonna walk you guys through and I'm gonna test the semi-structured interview, and we can see how this works.
Hi there. To get us started, can you tell me about the most recent trip you planned and booked?
Yeah, I actually traveled to southern Italy
Ellie, what kind of trip was it? Were you going for leisure or was it something else?
for leisure.
Nice. How did you first start planning that trip to southern Italy? What was your process like in the beginning?
So I went on Google, searched for the key cities that we wanted to go to, booked hotels based on, ratings that I saw on like TripAdvisor and like hotels.com. And booked our plane tickets through Chase Travel.
Got it. So it sounds like Google and those travel sites were your main tools. What made you choose those particular platforms for your planning?
They've always been the ones that the platforms that I use for traveling. And it's always the platforms that have the most data, that are also most credible. So I think those were the reasons why I chose those platforms.
That makes sense. Reliable data and credibility are important. When you were making your decisions, what factors did you weigh the most? For example, was it price, location, or something else?
I would say Price and location.
Price and location were key factors for you. When you were weighing those factors, did you run into any challenges or frustrations during the process?
No, I wouldn't say so. It was pretty straightforward.
Great to hear it was smooth for you. If you could improve any part of the planning or booking experience, what would you change?
The better price comparisons across different locations. And when I'm deciding between two options, just being able to very quickly compare the price, I think would be a good addition to the platforms that are used.
That makes sense. Having a quicker way to compare prices side by side would be really helpful. Is there anything else that you wish was easier or more intuitive in the process?
That was it.
Yeah. Just to wrap up, if you had a magic wand and could make anything possible for planning your next trip, what would that be?
Maybe having to wait in line.
Definitely make traveling more enjoyable. Is there anything else you'd like to add before?
No, I think that's it.
Got it. That's a solid wish. Well, thanks so much for sharing your experience with me. Do you have any final thoughts or questions?
Nope.
Thanks again for your time and have a great day.
All right, so yeah, that was an example of a semi-structured interview. So as you guys saw, there was a very clear outline in terms of the structure of the interview, and then there was a sentence describing what the AI interviewer should do. But we didn't specify the questions that the AI interviewer should be asking in this example. Um, Next, we're going to go through the structured discussion guide just to show you how you can actually provide the exact questions that the AI interviewer should be asking. So let's take a look at this one.
Thanks for joining today. To start, can you tell me a little about the last trip you planned or booked?
Yeah, I went to southern Italy with my family.
It sounds lovely. How did you go about planning that trip?
I went on hotels.com, booked my hotels, and I booked my airline tickets with United.
And when you first decide to take a trip like that, what's usually the very first thing you do?
I go on Google or ChatGPT to try to search for the cheapest options for the flights and the hotels that I need.
So you start by looking for the best deals. Once you have a sense of prices, how do you typically decide on specific flights or hotels?
I look at the ratings, the reviews, and then I also see whether they're supported or they have the membership discounts for all the hotel memberships that I have.
So reviews and membership perks play a big role. Can you walk me through how you compare different flight or hotel options once you've narrowed them down?
Yeah, I just look on Google. It has the price comparison table there. And then I just try to see, depending on the dates that I want to go to, like which, provider has the cheapest option. I gotta say, like the price comparisons is something that I think could be improved.
That's interesting. Are there any specific frustrations you've had with those price comparisons or something that makes it more difficult than it needs to be?
Yeah, it's just difficult to see, find the right option and then being able to actually accurately compare the prices. I think has been a challenge for me.
Got it. So it's not always easy to get a clear comparison. Have you ever changed your decision last minute because of something that came up during that process?
Not really.
Thanks for sharing that. So when booking travel, What would you say is the most frustrating part for you?
Um, that's just finding the cheapest options.
I see. So the price factor is really key. Can you recall a specific time when booking travel felt particularly difficult or stressful?
Uh, yeah, I think when I was booking the Italy trip, I couldn't view the hotel site in English because it was all written in Italian, so that was frustrating.
Oh, I can imagine that would be tricky. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about booking travel, what would it be?
Online.
Definitely make things smoother. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your overall travel booking experience?
Uh, nope, not at all.
Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate your insights.
Okay, so that was an example of a structured interview. As you saw, there is a very clear outline and specific sets of questions that we wanted to ask the participants. The AI moderator did a good job of following that guide and making sure all those questions got asked. It did kind of when it provided some answers about what part was frustrating, it did probe a little bit, but mostly it 90% of the time it was trying to stick to the script, which was something that it didn't do when in the fluid case as well as the semi-structured case. Just going back to the presentation, so really we believe that the AI interviews can be used in many different ways, depending on your use case and depending on your team's goals. There are three different ways to think about it. Having a structured interview, having a semi-structured interview, and then also having a flexible interview depending on the type of discovery and the insights that you want to collect. So based on these guidelines and the tips that we shared, we hope that you'll be able to customize the AI moderators to behave in the way that you want them to, and most importantly, gather the highest quality insights possible with this new feature that we've added. If you haven't tested this out, feel free to schedule a demo and talk to our sales team, and we'll be able to walk you through the AI interviews in detail, and then even show you examples and actual participant videos based on some of the AI interviews that we ran in the past couple months. And yeah, if there are any other questions, please do let us know. I'm going to open the floor up for Q&A just after this, but. Yeah, we'll love to stay in touch. And then for the folks that have joined, thank you so much for making the time.